Good morning. It is Sunday, the 23rd of November. Okay, so outlook for the week ahead. All right, so we'll start with indices. So there are a couple of ways of looking at this, right? So one is, let's start with the bullish case here. We've come and tested the developing year's value high. We talked about this level in terms of NASDAQ last week, aligning with the previous quarter's value high and this naked VWAP from quarter two, sorry. So, important level of support. However, we are trading below 2 overlapping months of value. The monthly is looking very bearish, as is the quarterly. And we are, inconclusively trying to reclaim the developing, we have tried to reclaim the developing week's value. So, at the very least, we have tried to return into value here. So it's a little bit ambiguous, but the way the monthly and the quarterly is looking and the way we've retested developing value and previous value on the month doesn't look particularly encouraging to me in terms of NASDAQ. So I am nervous, to say the least, while we're below 24,500. If we can find exceptions below the previous quarter, then potentially there's that opens the door to a pretty big move towards sort of 22.9k area, and potentially yearly VWAP a bit lower than that into these previous highs and this imbalance. So if it comes to the yearly, and if I just mark this level out, there's a clear gap here, and we've got these highs to test, and it's aligning with the yearly VWAP. So lots of confidence in that area should we get there around 22k, and that more or less, it's quite a way below that previous quarter's value. But I mean, if we accept within the developing year, I would probably anticipate that we come and test yearly VWAP, which is a big nuke lower. So we really need to get above 24.6 to be bullish. Otherwise, I am kind of defensive on indices coming into this week, and that obviously is going to inform what happens with crypto. I don't see BTC rallying if NASDAQ is going to nuke, 10% or so. NQ is the same levels, more or less. So let's take a look at ES as well quickly. It's not going to be much different. More conclusively traded back within the developing week, but couldn't get above VWAP. As I say, 2 overlapping months, failing at the developing month and previous, and similar picture on the quarter. So again, we're trading sort of around support, but not looking particularly great. So is this retest going to hold here, or again, do we come and retest yearly VWAP over the coming days, weeks? I don't think these moves to the downside tend to be pretty sharp. So I think if it does happen, it will probably happen pretty aggressively, as everyone tries to rush to the exits. So, similar kind of idea, imbalance, previous highs, and yearly VWAP around 6,100. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking about indices. They don't look very good to me coming into this week. So unless we can get reclaims higher up, I would be a bit cautious. Okay, so BTC. All right, so in terms of VWAP, it's ugly, right? I mean, we're back within the developing week, but obviously still imbalanced down on the year. Yearly val around 89k, quarterly a bit higher, obviously imbalanced down on the month as well. So there's plenty of work to do for us to definitively go bullish against VWAP. But what we've seen over the back end of last week was a shift of condition, right? So the market's going to continue doing the same things until it finds strong opposing activity. And what did we get? So I just want to get rid of this moving average band. So, I mean, really, this was the bearish shift which sent us lower. So we accepted back within previous value, broke down, retested value, broke down, formed value, broke down, formed value, and then had this accelerative leg where we actually got a decent flush of open interest for the first time. Really, since we started this controlled move down from 105, 110k. So where do we come into? Previous 8-week composite. We tagged the composite low on that sweep. So I took a small long initially, and then we swept the low, added to it. So it's looking constructive now, and I think we have a nice imbalance here, aligning with the 8-week composite high, and these overlapping VWAP levels. So yearly value low, weekly VWAP, monthly value low. So are we going to see an attempt to break through these levels which fails, and perhaps we sell off with indices, or do we reclaim higher, in which case we can anticipate a move towards 96k, this POC I would suggest. If we look at it on a higher time frame basis, on the weekly, we've come and tested all the way into demand here. Should we continue and just rally higher, then there's an obvious upside target being this point of control. We've got a nice imbalance here on the weekly as well. So taking out the previous week's high would be logical. Should we accept above 90k? But as it is, we've definitely got a significant area of resistance around 90k. A lot of sellers stepped in here. We've got this high volume candle, the imbalance and the overlapping VWAP levels and the composite levels. So I would probably anticipate that if indices are going to sell off, this is where we get capped around this 90k area. So for now, I think it's good to be long. We formed a 2-day composite Friday and Saturday. Let's just take a look. Just marked out the CME close there, but just bring up the TPO. So this is Friday and Saturday's comp. Broke out today. I actually took profit on my long and I've re-entered on this retest, successfully retesting value, and I think reasonable to target this high and these VWAP levels from here, and then we'll have to reassess. So yeah, broadly the two scenarios. The bullish scenario obviously is that we just continue, reclaim 90k. So if we get a shift inside this old 2-day comp, we can just play for higher. But if we fail around this area, perhaps get an attempt in there or wherever it may be, and get back below these overlapping VWAPs, then I think that would potentially lead to another leg down with indices. And where that goes is anyone's guess, really. Whether we make a double bottom or potentially come and sweep April's low, into this kind of area. Potentially, that's just something to watch. I think there are other reasons to be defensive. I think there are a bunch of alts which aren't looking particularly great. But yeah, BTC for now is looking really good. I mean, on Friday, there was a lot of spot buying around this area. We got the impulse up into the close, and then just a retracement yesterday. But yeah, reclaim value. There's no reason to be bearish yet, right? So I think you just have to be mindful of the fact that we could see a change as we come into this area around 90k, 88 to 90k. But for now, it's looking really good. So everything hinges on this, and probably what happens with indices as well. I think the market's been reacting to a lower probability of cuts at the December FOMC. Obviously, that now looks, according to Polymarket, more likely to happen. So, how I think it's going to be a really interesting week, put it that way. Seeing how indices respond coming into this week is going to be quite important. But this area, I think, is key. I think even if you are long here, you can just take profit and then look to re-enter. I mean, that's personally probably how I will play it, as a Euro poor scalper, which I increasingly identify as, because I just find swing trading to be, well, it's fine if you're not at your desk, but if you're at your desk and watching price action, why not try and play the rotations? But yeah, certainly with a long bias up till this area. Okay, so that's BTC. ETH, I've barely looked at ETH. We came into this comp, previous EFL. This area has acted as SR for a good couple of years. Well, since May last year, maybe even before that. In any case, there's a low volume node here, which may cap upside for ETH. So yeah, I wouldn't be long ETH into this area. There's a really simple setup for ETH, just playing this 9-week composite. So if we should lose, let me just get that marker. If we should lose 26.68, this 9-week composite high, you can look to play a retest and just trade it down to 24.60. Yeah, ETH doesn't look so good to me, to be honest. If I look at VWAP, I mean, it's probably going to be very similar. It is very similar. But, purely looking at VWAP, we've got an imbalance and the developing months value low around 2,900 to 2,950-ish. Lining up with weekly VWAP. So, if we're going to reject, that's probably where it's going to happen. We're below, we've come into previous year's value low, but should really probably anticipate a move towards the developing year's value low around 2,150. So I don't really see a reason to be trading ETH right now unless it starts to show real outperformance against Bitcoin, and probably looking for longs higher up. But yeah, potentially resistance here, and then maybe we stop respecting this LVN at some point, but for now it has been respected. So this kind of imbalance area, monthly val, is probably where I'd expect it to reject if it spikes any higher. So that's ETH Sol. So we got this nice traversal through the old 8-month comp. Just quickly, this is from March 2024, 8 months of value, been well respected ever since. So that was that nice swing short done from 170-ish in this gap all the way down to the composite lows. So found support here again. I haven't really been looking at Solana either, to be honest. But clearly there is some resistance here. So these lows, currently capping it. I think if we break 125, which is the 8-month composite low, then I wouldn't be looking for longs probably until, I'd probably be, if you wanted to, you could potentially take a breakdown short towards 115, previous year's value low. Most likely we're going to come and test this composite at 102. So if that bearish scenario plays out, then I think there's a bit of trouble. Sol's probably in a little bit of trouble. Okay, more interesting alts. Let's just look at a couple quickly and then I'll call it a day. ZEC. So ZEC is, looking still quite strong to me. The trend structure is still really good. And we have come into this area of resistance. So we just had this 2-day composite, which we failed at earlier today. But reclaiming the developing week's value, monthly VWAP, quarterly value high. So difficult to be short ZEC at the moment, although the 3-day is showing really strong momentum loss. If we look at RSI, we've got these 2 divs. So if it is going to push higher, I think it's a really good short, and it may well be topped, to be honest. So it's kind of a difficult short, but we are rejecting from resistance. Obviously, if we accept above this composite low 592, then probably going significantly higher again, or at least back up to the composite high 636. But yeah, ideally for bears, they want to see it stuck below that level. So we've had an attempt, lost it, retested. The high time frame momentum loss to me is meaningful. I think when you're looking at sort of 3-day and above, double divs on the 3-day and above are quite meaningful. So if this is going to be capped here, then I think next move is probably at least to take out this low again in towards the developing months value low, and then possibly to make a new low around quarterly VWAP and the 90-day rolling. And at that point, I think it's definitively bearish because we're back below the 30-day VWAP. But for now, the trend structure is still good, and I think it's risky to short because the trend structure is so good. You've got nice separation on the rolling VWAPs, they're still pointing up. But yeah, momentum probably points lower, It's just, you run the risk of being blown out here, I think, and potentially the highs getting swept, which may provide a better shorting opportunity. Obviously, with BTC potentially looking at like it wants to rally to that 90k area as well, that could potentially drag this with it. So kind of a difficult thing to short at the moment. Let's look at hype because it's been talk of the town. I mean, this wasn't a surprising breakdown, right? We traded sideways for 3 weeks, compressing that support. So let's just zoom out and look at the context. So we had this previous value, 6 weeks of value here, and formed 3 weeks here. Testing the level over and over again, eventually swept into the gap, and then got the retest of the POC before we broke down. So that was a really nice short on Friday morning, from sort of 38.50 into the composite lows, 32. We're now below the 365-day VWAP and yearly VWAP, and I think as long as we're below the old 6-week composite, which proved itself as support here, then significant probability that we go lower. If we just deviate yearly VWAP and reclaim, that would be a sign of strength. So, a sign of strength on hype would be if we can get back above the developing week's value low and into this old comp, so above 32.30 essentially. If we are capped here, I think there's a very high probability that we continue to trade down into this composite and potentially towards yearly val around 20. I personally think we are kind of in early stages of bear, but we could see a lot of two-way trading, and I think this area is where I would be looking to pick up hype long term, if possible. This clear area of demand. So if we start to trade below 1750, that's where I'd probably start buying this thing. But for now, breaking down below previous value, below the yearly VWAP, looks pretty bearish. So also, we traded sideways for 3 weeks and we've gone down for like a day and a half. So also, the other contextual thing here is obviously that we traded sideways up here for months, right? July, August, September, October. Then we broke down, retested. So you've had all of this distribution. Okay, we got, the 10-10 nuke, but all of this distribution, I think, most likely does lead to lower prices. And then obviously the narrative and all the stuff that's going on around unlocks and whatever. I don't really follow all this shit, to be honest. This tells you everything you need to know. But, below 30-day VWAP, compressing at support, I was looking for a short. So that was quite clear. But expecting lower unless we can get above 32.30 now. I don't think you should see a significant deviation back above yearly and then another loss of it. So I'm looking for this area to hold as resistance for this to come lower. But, the main short has played out. That was the easy short. I think whatever happens here is just bonus for bears, really. What's looking good alts-wise? Not much. I thought I was long SPX this morning, but I closed it out. We swept this low. Alts generally don't look very good to me at the moment, honestly. Just not hugely enthused about trading them. There's opportunities here and there, but for the most part, it's like quick scalps, and it's just not really worth it when BTC is moving like the way it is. So, I'll leave it there for today. I think indices a little bit ambiguous. I lean bearish, but we've got levels to reclaim higher up, just as BTC has, right? So if we can get above 90, above 90k, then I think it starts to look very good. But I think this area is going to be significant resistance. So looking for sellers to step in above 88k essentially. So we'll see what happens around here. That is it for today. I will catch you next time. Cheers.